Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Experience Grad York session. Looking ahead, applying to graduate school in 2028. Today, we have Eileen Watson, our Graduate Recruitment and Liaison Officer, presenting this session. Take it away, Eileen.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today's presentation is meant for people who are in their first couple of years of their undergraduate degree, who are thinking of applying to graduate studies, but not for a couple years. So you can see, obviously, I've put fall 2028. It's meant to be, um, you know, fall 2020 and beyond. So not necessarily folks who are looking at fall 2026. If you are looking at fall 2026, any one of the faculty sessions would be a good fit for you to look at, but we will not be answering questions about September 2026 admission. Just keep that in mind. The advice given in the presentation is applicable for graduate studies at York University in particular. So it may be translatable, but specifically we're focusing on York. And I will be turning my camera off for the presenting part since I talk with my hands and it is distracting. But we will have an open Q&A at the end where we can address all of your questions and have camera on and all that jazz. So we're going to dive right into it and talk about what each degree is, essentially. So first up, we've got master's degrees as the first level of graduate study. The next degree available after you've completed your BA, BSc, BCom, all that jazz. Usually masters are 1 to 2 years in length, and that's preset by a program, not decided by a student. And traditionally, there's three formats that a master's comes in. So coursework only, major research project, or thesis based. So for a coursework only master's, you're entering the program and you're doing a set number of courses, usually between 8 to 10. And then once you finish those, that's it. You're done, you graduate. Major research paper, major research project, you're still taking courses, quite a few, so 6 essentially, approximately 6 total. Excuse me, you're also doing a small research project in addition to those courses. So usually culminating in a paper of about 50 or 60 pages. Lastly, thesis-based masters, you're still taking a handful of courses, usually about 4 total. So not 4 per term, 4 total, and doing a large research project in addition to those 4 courses. So usually culminates in a paper of 110, 120 pages. So some programs offer all 3 formats. It's up to you. Others, it's a choice between 2, often major research paper or thesis being options. And then others only have one available. Like if you want to do a Master of Science in Biology at York, it's only available thesis-based. If you want to do a Master of Arts in Economics, it's only available coursework only. Others like education or environmental studies offer all 3 formats and it's your choice. There's also some programs that have formats outside of the traditional structure, like social work has practicum placements, biotechnology has an internship. So there's definitely some wiggle room depending on the program, but traditionally, these are the 3 that you'll see. So master's programs are not just a continuation of your undergrad program. There's going to be a lot of differences, including that most degrees are much more focused on research. So yes, there's some coursework only degrees, but they're much more rare than ones that include an MRP or a thesis. You'll have much more contact with faculty and you'll have a different relationship to them than you did as an undergrad student. Less as like a teacher student and more as like peers working together to advance knowledge in the field. Degrees are much more self-directed. So, for example, there are no academic advisors at the graduate level. The graduate program will send you like, here's the degree outline, here are your course options, and it's up to you to chart your way, and to also like ensure that you're progressing through the requirements each term. It's very possible to be registered as a full-time student and not be enrolled in any courses in any given term because you're doing research full-time. And it's definitely up to you to structure your time in a way that allows you to progress There's not anyone checking. There's not regular like course things like midterms or quizzes or assignments necessarily, but you still need to be making progress. So very self-directed that way. And also graduate schools year round. So typically at York, undergraduate students will do um, a quote unquote full term in the fall, full term in the winter, and then maybe a course or two in the summer, but a lot don't. But for master's and PhD, you need to be registered in fall, winter, and summer. So 12 months of the year, year round. After you've done a master's, you can do a PhD or doctoral degree if you so choose. It's certainly not mandatory. PhDs are much longer and much deeper in scope than a master's. Usually, a PhD can be completed in 4 or 5 years. Sometimes it can take 6 or more, depends on the program, the research you're doing. If you've got supervised practice as part of your PhD, that might take a bit longer as well. But for all programs at York except mechanical engineering, you need to have a master's before you go into a PhD. So sometimes we do get questions about direct entry PhD, going right from your bachelor's to your PhD. It's a lot more common in the US and the UK and potentially other places around the world, but that's where I get the most questions from. But at York, it's only available for mechanical engineering and only if you have an A average. The structure of the PhD, by and large, is the same across disciplines. You enter the program, you take courses in your first, maybe second year, then you write your qualifying or your comprehensive exam, and then it's years and years of research. So across the board, across disciplines, very, very similar structure. So why might someone want to go to grad school? Three main reasons is essentially how we've distilled it. So professional growth, personal development, and academic excellence. So in terms of professional growth, grad degrees open doors to higher employment rates, higher salaries, recession-proof salaries and jobs as well. For personal development, about learning and growing and creating lifelong connections. And then for academic excellence, it's about contributing to, advancing, even creating knowledge, and collaborating with the best and brightest minds in your field. So graduate application components. This is a really information-heavy slide. Yes, we are recording. It won't be up on YouTube for probably a month, 6 weeks, but the information will be available. So don't feel that you have to write it all down now, but the gist of it, you could definitely, capture and action right away. But yes, the main application components that are considered when you apply to a grad program are grades, your resume, your letters of reference, your statement of interest, and then other, which encapsulates a bunch of things, but we'll get to that. So, grades. All master's programs at York require you to have that honors degree. So it usually takes 4 years to earn. If you're a York undergrad, it's the 120 credit degree program. And we look at your grades within that honors degree. So a minimum GPA of 7 or above, that's on the York scale. So a 7 is a B plus, 77 and 78 out of 100, 3.3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 15, 16 out of 20, so on and so on. We calculate your GPA using your last 2 years of full-time study or equivalent on the transcript at the time that you apply. So if you're a York student, that is the last 60 credits on the transcript at the time that you apply. If you're at a school where to graduate your degree means earning 40 credits, we're looking at your last 20. If you're at a school where 20 credits means you're ready to graduate, we're looking at your last 10. In this calculation, we include summer courses, fifth-year courses, part-time courses. The single best thing you can do for your application is having a strong GPA. It is the foundation of the application, so it is the best thing you could do to prepare yourself for grad study and to enhance your application, I suppose. So we don't use, and this is really important, we don't use college grades or grades from a lot of continuing studies courses or schools for the purpose of graduate admission. So we're only using undergraduate credit courses or grad credit courses. Sometimes we'll see where someone will have kind of a rocky undergrad and then they'll say, okay, I'll go to college, do an 8-month postgraduate certificate, and I'll use those grades for graduate admission. But we don't use college diplomas, certificates, postgraduate certificates. It's great that you did it. You can put it on your CV or your resume, but it's not, we don't use those grades. Keep in mind as well that if you're wanting to go to grad school right out of undergrad, we you would apply in the fall, usually, maybe winter of your fourth year. But we will use the grades on your transcript at the time that you apply. So if you're applying, let's say right now, October 14th, 2027, for fall 2028 admission, we will not have any of your fall 2027 grades available when you apply. So we will go off of what is on that transcript document. And it's fine if it's summer and before, it happens all the time, but we don't recalculate your GPA. You wouldn't like submit your transcript twice. It is the transcript at the time that you apply. That's what we're using. So sometimes people are like, oh, I've already done poorly in this or poorly in this. If you want to redo a course, we take the second grade attempt, no matter which one is higher. So if you did really poorly in, I don't know, special topics in computational arts, 3,000. If you want, you can redo that identical course code. But if you got a 70 the first time and got a 68 the next time, we're taking that 68. If you got a 70 the first time but an 85 the next time, we take the 85. So just be careful in doing that. People sometimes think that they need to be a perfect student for all 4 years of their undergrad to get into a master's, and that is 100% not true. So I would say there's kind of three great kinds of applicants. And the first one, yeah, there's people who did really well their whole undergrad. Like, that's great. That's a lovely accomplishment. Wonderful for you. Perfect. Apply with what you've got. However, kind two, or category two, I suppose, are people who did poorly. And it could be a variety of reasons. Maybe it's immaturity and weren't ready to go to, university right out of high school or what have you. But sometimes there's just outside factors and traumas that impact your academic performance. Like you got sick, a family member got sick, you know, literal war, depending on where you are. So whatever happened, it happened. But at a certain point, these applicants, they rallied their GPA, they've showed exponential improvement and growth as a student, and they have that track record and they're applying based on like, look what I have done. Like, yes, XYZ happened. Here's how I came back from that. Or here's how I grew from that, or here's how I was removed from that situation and then was able to succeed, kind of thing. Category three is people who did poorly, just straight up barely passed their classes, maybe barely even graduated, but they've had a successful career for like 10, 15, 20 years, and they want to supplement that, their experience, like their practical experience, with a graduate degree. So again, you do not need to have been a perfect student. Do you need to show achievement and accomplishment at a sustained level? Yes. But it doesn't, your whole life does not need to have been perfect. I say all the time, I'm like, if it was only, A+ students who had never done anything wrong, we'd have 3 students in a tumbleweed at graduate school. So please don't worry about having done nothing wrong ever. Second component of the graduate application is your resume. So your work experience, your volunteer experience, and your research experience. So grad programs want to see what you're doing outside of the classroom. So I'll go into each of these categories. Keep in mind that for a lot of these programs, it's not 100% necessary. It just rounds out an application. So work, part-time or full-time jobs in the area that you're hoping to study in are ideal, but don't discount the power of transferable skills. So it may be like working at McDonald's might not be like it might not seem on the face of it to be relevant to grad school, but successfully working there while handling a full course load. I mean, that's hard. Like working while you go to school is hard. You know, when you get into a career and you're doing the same thing all the time at work, you get into a groove. But when you're learning new things all the time at school, that's tricky. But anyway, working at McDonald's, you're showing organization, maturity, commitment, dedication. So a lot of people are working whatever jobs they can out of necessity, and that is completely fine. Like you have to pay for your degree or your life or your family, like by some means, right? So if you're someone who's like, oh, but I've only ever focused on my grades and I've not done anything outside of that, even just one shift a week can set you up for success. And then maybe your supervisor or your manager can provide you with a reference, which we'll talk about references next. But volunteering. So volunteer experience can be a huge asset, and it doesn't have to be a huge commitment. So even 1 or 2 hours a week, the experiences can you can know more about the subject or industry. Student clubs absolutely count. If anyone came to this afternoon's session with our vice provost and dean, Alice, she talked about when she's a philosophy professor, and when she sees people apply to work with her, maybe they don't have a research experience because their university didn't do undergrad theses in their undergraduate program, but they were heavily involved with the club, which shows, dedication to the subject area, um, time committed, interest shown. So they absolutely count. If the club doesn't exist, you can create it. So, um, research, the next one. So the opportunities I'm talking about are found at York, but they probably exist at your institution if you're at another school. It's just probably under a different name. But doing an undergrad thesis. I know it's not available for the vast majority of programs, but for the ones that it is, it's a great idea to do. Um, so it's available as a fourth year course. Usually you have to have a certain GPA to get in, excuse me, but you are supervised by a professor working on a research project, and it culminates in a paper of about 30 to 40 pages on your research. Maybe it goes beyond that and you do like a poster presentation or a conference presentation or, whatever it ends up being. Maybe your research is actionable in a community. There's real world implications that, you can participate in. Anyway, great option. The Ray program or Research at York program they're paid, goodness, excuse me. Let me take a drink. Paid research positions. Now, there's strict eligibility requirements. You have to be a domestic student. You have to demonstrate financial need. You have to be a full-time student. But um, they are paid research positions often for the summer. So that's definitely something to have a look at. I think they're posted on Experience York, if I'm not mistaken. Then the research opportunity with the lowest kind of threshold or barrier to entry is volunteering in a professor's lab. So professors will sometimes take on undergraduate students as volunteers in their lab to help with things like data entry, transcription, assistance of any kind with the research that they're doing. It truly depends. A lot of these opportunities aren't advertised. So you have to approach individual professors to see if they are looking for assistance. So we tend to think of labs as being like exclusive to science and engineering. But in this context, by lab, I mean a group of students at all levels, so bachelor's, master's, PhD, that are all working on similar research being supervised by the same professor or professors. So usually they will announce these opportunities in class, put them on their website, could even be word of mouth, which I know it's frustrating. It's not a structured program. It's not like do X, do Y, and it will equal Z. But um, now that you know this sort of thing exists, it might be easier to look for it. And then as well, if you approach professors, I want to volunteer with you and they don't have any or don't have any opportunities now, try again next term. That may be the difference. There's also independent study courses. So maybe you don't have an undergrad thesis option available to you, but to do an independent course, most programs have them. It's like a course code in the fourth year where you're working with a specific professor, you're co-creating a reading list and coming up with your accountabilities, like whether it's a paper or multiple papers or what have you. But taking research one step further, and you would be doing this in conjunction with a faculty member, but attending conferences, doing presentations, which could be internal to the university, could be external. Maybe if you're working with a specific community group, presenting the research to that community group, or you're creating a program for this type, or I mean, this is very simplified, but like creating a vaccine for this illness and then, presenting that to XYZ agency. Um, I mean, it's not as simple as that, obviously, but publishing research potentially, so submitting your papers to an academic journal. So, I mean, most people applying to a master's do not have published work. They have not necessarily been to any conference whatsoever. But these are things that will be unique on your application, and that will show that you are ready, willing, and able to conduct research at the graduate level. Okay, letters of reference. So all graduate degrees at York require at least two, if not three, letters of reference from applicants. So most are three, handful or two. The purpose of the letters of reference are to have someone who's taught you or supervised you comment on your abilities and your suitability for graduate level study. So letters of recommendation can come from faculty members who have supervised your research or taught you in a course, or they could come from a work manager or supervisor, or even a volunteer manager or supervisor. But first of all, you want references from people who know you and who will be able to give you a positive reference. So to cultivate a positive reference, I mean, it's very straightforward. With professors, take more than one class with the same professor, show up to the class, sit in the front row, engage in discussion, go to office hours, turn in great work, or even if you're not turning in great work at the beginning, improve exponentially. For managers and supervisors, I mean, be a good employee or volunteer contributor. Be dependable, responsible, organized, proactive, kind, helpful. Ask for feedback on your performance and incorporate it into your routine, your behavior. So, when you're asking for references as well, I would advise to ask if someone can give you a good reference instead of asking for a reference. That way, if they say yes, you know that they are saying yes to a positive reference. Then statement of interest. So virtually every single degree, there's a handful that don't. Chemistry doesn't require one, economics doesn't, but for the most part. If you attended today's session at noon, which a lot of these names look familiar, so maybe you did, it is 1 to 2 pages, 500 to 1,000 words, double spaced, and you're talking about briefly about your past experience, like your degree, some of your practical experiences, your life experience potentially, what you want to do in the program. So, what research, with what faculty, with what facilities, what have like courses you want to take, etc. And then what you're wanting to do after the program. So after you graduate, what are your next steps? That kind of thing. But you're making a case for why you would be a good candidate for their graduate program. So for some programs have some additional requirements. Sometimes they want to see a sample of your work, which is really a third or fourth year paper that you have already written. So nothing new, but just to showcase your writing and research skills. Portfolio. So art and design programs want to see samples of your work. That should definitely not be a surprise to anyone who's in an undergraduate art program. You probably had to do a portfolio to get into your undergrad. The GRE or graduate record examination is not actually required for any grad programs at York. It might be optional or recommended though. So just have a look at programs that you're interested in. If that is something GRE scores that you're wanting to submit or that you need to submit, I would start planning 2 years in advance for that. So it's a standardized test for graduate school, essentially. There's a regular one, and then there are subject-specific ones. I guess it's not written through York, it's through a private company. Yeah. Other ones as well, portfolio, sample of written work. Sometimes programs want to do interviews with you, but that's something that you can kind of, like, once you've done all your materials, you're pretty much like, you would know what they're wanting to ask you in a graduate application anyway, and be able to speak on your statement and on your materials and all that jazz. So, in terms of cost for a graduate program, right now, this is what the numbers are. So for most domestic students, you're looking at 5,200 for the year, the whole year. And keep in mind, as I said before, grad school's year round. So fall, winter, summer, per term, you're looking at 1,735. International tuition for most programs is just under 20,000 for the master's level, just under 19,000 for the PhD level. So master's, it's about 6,600 per term, PhD 6,300 per term. So that's the cost, but what a lot of people don't know is paying for grad school is much, much different than paying for an undergraduate degree because grad students get funding. So funding is money given to you by the university to help pay for the cost of a grad program. We give out funding offers in our admission offers. So if you've got get a letter that says, congratulations, you've got a spot in this program, it will include, if any, financial support, a dollar amount of financial support. That if you choose to come study with us, here is what you would receive. So, and this is for right now, numbers will fluctuate before 2028, but as of right now, the standard package for a domestic master's student is 10,000. Standard for an international master's is 19 and a half. For PhD, 26 and a half up to 27. And for international PhD, around 39,000. So most faculties offer full-time domestic students almost every program. It's funding package. Some international students do as well, depends on the program. Funding is per year. So if you're in a 2-year domestic master's program, it would be, or a 2-year program as a domestic student, it's 10,000 per year. And if we go back to the, if we go back to the tuition being 5,200 per year, the remainder after the $10,000 funding package is 4,800. And that's just yours to help with living expenses. So PhDs as well, we offer funding for 5 full years, which some schools only do 3, maybe 4, but it's very possible you could graduate before needing that 5th year, but it is available to you. So definitely a great resource that York has. There's no funding for part-time studies, and there are quite a few international offers made without funding. So just keep that in mind. There's also a ton of scholarships available in addition to funding. So if you get funding, great, you can still get a scholarship. If you don't get funding, that's fine too, because you can still apply for scholarships. So we'll put the link in the chat to see more about these, but essentially there's millions of dollars in awards available. So there's 3 main kinds, so current student, government, and external. Current student, there's awards between $500 and $5,000 that once you start grad school, you can apply for. For government awards, either at the federal or provincial level, tens of thousands of dollars. So it would be your responsibility to research, what am I eligible for? What's worth my time to apply for? What's realistic? All that jazz. And then external awards, which are neither internal nor through the government, you usually apply directly to funding agencies or corporations or foundations, that kind of thing. Then there is also financial assistance, bursaries. or York Financial Assistance, usually no more than 1,000 a year. But it certainly doesn't hurt. And then OSAP. So a lot of you, if you are currently a university student in Ontario, you may be utilizing OSAP to, pay for your undergrad. It's fully available for graduate degree students. So it's very possible that you could get a funding package and a scholarship and receive OSAP. So as long as you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident who's a resident of Ontario, you can uh, apply for OSAP, which is through the government and is made up of grants and loans, depending. So the timeline for the application is very similar year to year, maybe shifts by a couple of days, but for the most part, in October, applications open for the following September. So for this year, applications opened October 8th for September 2026. Usually they open on or around Canadian Thanksgiving. Most grad programs at York only take on new students every fall or every September. So keep that in mind. A lot of people ask about January or May entry, but at York, you're looking at September. Deadlines fall between December and March. So it ultimately depends on the program. Some deadlines are very early and you've only got a short 6-week window to apply before December 1st. Others fall later into the spring. Decisions usually come out between February and June. Then July and August, you would connect with your program, and September, school would start. But it's quite a lengthy process. Okay, so that's really the end of, it's not a formal presentation, but that's the end of the presentation. I'll just do a little plug here for the Faculty of Graduate Studies social channels. We'll put them in the chat as well. So we have Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So then we'll move into an open Q&A. I see there's already some questions going, so we'll pause here for a sec.